Hi, Bruce Lorincz, and this show is called Bruce on the Loose, and we talk to a lot of people in the county and the school system and also in city government. Superintendent Andy Hill is with us today, and Andy, thank you for giving the community a bird's eye view of the project the district has coming up on November 2nd.
Thank you for having me here today, Bruce. Happy to be here.
It was a long journey, I'm sure, to get to this point. Could you maybe point out a couple highlights of that arduous journey from the CIS building to get to a voting issue?
Sure. And the process really begun long before I started here in the school district over 8 years ago. I think that there's been ongoing discussion in relation to the Central Intermediate School. Renovations that took place right around the year 2000 that were expected to last for about 25 years, and some analysis that was completed in 2008 as part of the larger project that ended up with the high school and the 3 elementaries and the changing around of the old overlook to the administration building. And so where I became involved once I was here was part of our board strategic plan that they adopted in 2015. December of 2015 was to form a Central Intermediate School Committee to take a look at different options and to come back with a recommendation to the board. So that committee, I think, met for the first time in November of 2016. And they made a recommendation to the board a full year later that they thought that a new intermediate school should be built on a different location than the current building, and that the board should do what they could to sell the existing building to someone that would utilize it for community purposes, at minimum, OJ Work Auditorium. And so since that time, I think it was April of 2018 that our board actually officially accepted that recommendation from the committee. And then from that point in time, we've had some ongoing dialogue, disputes we were working through with the Ohio Facility Construction Commission in Columbus, and then ultimately working through the whole COVID thing. But our goal has been and continues to be, if the voters are, if our community's in favor of this issue, is to be able to have a new school in place for students no later than the fall of 2025.
And how many acres would this purchase be involved?
So I think we were looking somewhere between 10 and 12 acres is what was necessary.
And what role would Medina County Auditor Mike Kovac have in this situation?
Sure. So the Medina County Auditor became an important player in all of this because the board has decided to place a combination bond and operating levy on the ballot for November 2nd. That issue is 2.4 mils for the bond portion for the new Central Intermediate School. That's $41 million that it would generate over 35 years. On the operating side, it's 6.7 mils continuous to continue to keep the level of programming we have and to continue to move forward with our new strategic plan to add opportunities for kids. So it's a total of 9.1 mils, but where the auditor became very important is because Doug Beeman and our board have worked really hard to refinance bonds from past years, and the bond issue that I think was passed in 1997 for the Franklin, Lincoln, and middle school, we've been able through that refinancing to be able to get that off the books and kind of sunset it a few years earlier than it was supposed to be. So the auditor has verified that starting in tax collections in January coming up of 2022, 3.2 mils will be coming off of the tax collection for residents of our school district because of the sunset of that bond issue. So that makes our total new ask on this 5.9 mils when you subtract off the 3.2.
That's really important for our voters to know, that they certainly can look at the ballot language and it looks like a huge number. Sure. But that is going to be reduced at the end of December?
Absolutely, yes. And I think you may have an upcoming show with the auditor and with Doug Beeman to go into greater detail on that. But That is a huge point, because when people go into the ballot box, they're going to see 9.1 mil total. It's not going to show the 3.2 mils. And our job as a school district is to be able to get information out to the community about this bond and operating levy issue, including that reduction, so that when they go to vote, that they have all the information that they need to be fully informed with whatever their decision is.
I think you have a couple of meetings scheduled coming up for citizens that have specific questions or, ideas that the board might have thought about to let us know at that particular time.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We have 3 of them scheduled. All 3 will take place in the James R. McIlvaine Performing Arts Center at Wadsworth High School. They start at 7 p.m. They're in person, but we're also offering a Google Meet option for those that either can't attend in person or would prefer to watch from home. They're on this coming Tuesday is our first one, so September 28th. And then I believe the other 2 dates are October 12th and October 27th. But again, those are in the McIlvaine Performing Arts Center, and the purpose of those meetings is to be able to give an overview of this operating and bond combination issue. To be able, our architects will be available to be able to show and talk about some of the very preliminary design ideas of what the facility could look like on the sites that we've purchased here. And we'll be able to answer questions and get information to people that they'd like to have, again, to be able to give them what they need to be able to make their decision.
You know, Wadsworth has really a knack for nostalgia, and the high school was a fortress for years. It was high school and the middle school for years. What really concerns did the committee and you have in regards to that facility? It served us well.
It sure did serve us well, and and I think one of the things that is, so not being from Wadsworth and being here now a little bit over 8 years, one of the things that's very clear to me is the importance that facility has played in the history of our school district. That's not lost on anybody. I think what we've come to here is the point where we had a facility assessment completed in 2017 by Shore Architects, which is the same company that the Ohio Facility Construction Commission had to do one in 2008, when we segmented the project and left CIS by itself and moved forward with the other project. And they showed at that time in 2017 dollars that it would cost an estimated $21.5 million to renovate that facility. And even with renovating it, it still doesn't provide us with the up-to-date educational learning environment that optimally we'd like our students to be able to be in. So, I think we grappled with the whole idea of the significance, the historical significance of the facility versus that type of money being used to renovate something that's still not going to really put us where we really need to be for today with education for our students as far as the spaces go. So that was really weighed heavily when that committee made that decision.
So I hear you say earlier that you're going to look at OJ work, retaining that. Has there been any discussion about maybe the gym? You know how important basketball is in our community.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the more challenging aspects of this recommendation that the board accepted from the committee, because what it really entails us to do is to sell the facility, but try to do so in a way that complies with all of Ohio Revised Code requirements that we have to go through for something that has a value like that, and also tries to find somebody that will use it for community purposes, even though once we sell it, we're not going to be able to control that use. So we've asked our architects to kind of put together some ideas just so the community could see what could this become. How could it tie into, as example, the 2017 downtown visioning plan that the City of Wadsworth put together? How could it align with what the CIS committee envisioned with being a facility that's utilized for community use by whoever were to purchase it. So there's some ideas that actually keep the OJ Work Auditorium, add some spaces around it, cafes, other type of things, create outdoor auditoriums, keep the field house as well as OJ, keep the facility itself in place, but I think what's important for our community to know is, we don't want to make any promises in relation to that
Sure.
we can't keep. And so our goal, if the community approves and lets us move forward with this new project, our goal would be to stay true as possible to what that recommendation was, and go from there and see. But there's a lot of creative people out there, and that's for what the enhancement of the downtown area here in Wadsworth. That with what the city envisions and Main Street Wadsworth and some of that other stuff, that's a pretty important area. And I'm certain that if we get the approval and we move forward with this, that somehow that will fall into place with what's best used for the community.
Speaking of the community, it seems like the board and you are certainly listening. The elementaries, K through 4 neighborhoods, the 5 neighborhood elementaries, then 5th and 6th, the students have different needs and different educational goals that they are looking for. 7th and 8th, certainly a different group as well. And the high school. Here, it seems to tie everything together that you have grades 5 through 12 on almost a campus type setting.
Yeah, I think, yes, absolutely. I think that we're excited about the opportunities that having our intermediate school on the same campus with the middle and high school present. We have a lot of students that move between buildings, and this would make it more optimal from the standpoint of being able to take different classes. I think we'd be able to leverage some different efficiencies in a way that we currently can't between all 3 being here. But I think one of the things that struck me was how quickly the CIS committee, and we had 40 or 50 people on there from all different walks of life, and they quickly came to the conclusion that it was really important for us to keep that 5-6 grade model and not to look at other things, because we had everything on the table and when we were having these discussions. And I think everybody very much values the direction that this district moved in the early 2000s when we combined the 5th and 6th grade together, because we recognize that is, like you said, a unique age group. And that building, or the people that are in that building, do such an amazing job with our students that are that age, and we just think it's really important to continue to have them grouped together in that setting for the things that are going on.
Andy, it seems to me that it's been quite a while since the district has been on the ballot. Is that the case?
It sure has been. I'm in my 9th year here now. This will be the first time that I've gone through any type of a levy issue.
You've been real fortunate in that.
Yeah, I have been
right?
very fortunate. Yeah, where I came from, we were on pretty regularly. But yes, we have not. I think operating wise, the last operating money that was approved was 2011. When that was approved, I'm told that there was the belief, and what we told the community is we thought 3 years is what we would get out of that. And here we are 10 years later. And we've done so much with adding programs, adding classes, adding opportunities for students. And to be able to do that in a way where we're 10 years later before we have to go back and ask is pretty incredible. On the bond issue side of things, I think it was 2008 when the community approved the high school project with the community center and everything, and then our 3 elementaries. So it's been a while.
We talked about the city collaborating with the school district. I'm sure people are going to say, what about the traffic? How? They probably shake their head and say, good luck with that one.
You know what, that's a very fair question. And so we know that. And what we have done very early in this process, once we were able to secure the properties that we're on here on Broad Street, Our architects have engaged a traffic engineer. We've had some initial conversations with the City of Wadsworth. The way that this facility is at least right now being envisioned to be designed, the main entrance to the building and where the traffic flow would occur would be to the south of us, not facing Broad Street. So we would not actually be adding any entrances off of Broad Street to get to this campus.
So down on Grizzly Way, as we look, and Drew can get maybe a picture of that, but basically as that sign is going toward the middle school.
Correct. Yeah, so we would be, you could come in off of School Drive, turn left onto Grizzly Way. In the preliminary drawings that we have right now, we actually have Grizzly Way being moved a little south to allow for some additional parking, but not too far south that it would take away anything that's there at the high school already. So, and the other thing I think that's important to note with this location is we've had no conversation of moving the start time and end time for the intermediate schools. So the middle and high schools start at 7:30, 7:35, and they end at 2:30, 2:35. Our elementaries and CIS start at 9:05, and they end around 3:30. So we would not be on the same traffic pattern here for the middle and the high school with the intermediate school. We do have overlook across the street, but it's our belief with the way that we have it designed that if we were going to have any kind of a potential stacking issue, which we think we can completely avoid, but if we were to have one, it would actually be on our school property and not something that would be tying up Broad Street. But there's a lot of work to be done with that, but we're very optimistic, and we recognize that's one of the questions that we've received a lot since we made the purchase and people knew that this is potentially the new location.
Makes a great deal of sense with that buffer included. I think it's, of course, if we can find bus drivers, that's another problem that a lot of districts are having.
That, you know what, that absolutely is a big problem. And if anybody watching this is interested in driving a bus for us, driving a van or a vehicle, we would be more than grateful to hear from you. We're definitely looking for people now.
Brad Musgrave said the same thing last week, and he said officials and bus drivers, if you know of any, let's recruit them.
That's right.
Thought that was interesting. I have to admit, I have a pet peeve about elections. When we have national elections, everyone gets excited, and we see so much publicity and millions of dollars spent. But where we really need to concentrate is local elections. This odd year, 2021, and I think some board members are up for 3 offices are open. How important do you think local elections really are?
Yeah, I would tell you, I think local elections are extremely important. You know, I mean, when you talk about the areas that can have kind of the most direct influence on what happens within a community, it's locally. Not to take anything away from the state or the national level, but the reality with those is that you know, they're a step away removed or multiple steps away removed. And so, you know, when you talk about things like the issues that we're taking, the combined issue for the school on the operating side and the bond side, those are things that directly will impact these kids in our community immediately, if given approval. When you talk about the Board of Education, we have a Board of Education of 5, if people don't know that. And it's every other year there's an election. It's 3 one year, and then 2 the next time, and then 3 again, and they're 4-year terms. And, you know, we have been very fortunate to have a Board of Education that really puts the kids first here. And, you know, and that's why when you talk about the importance of these elections, it's critical because, you know, our Board of Education sets kind of the whole atmosphere for how this school district runs, and our Board of Education oversees the policies and other things about how we operate as a school district. And you know, they're intimately involved in us creating our strategic plans, which are loaded with opportunities of where we're moving to be able to further the education and opportunities for kids in this community. So, I can't say enough about how important I personally feel local elections are, because they definitely, of all things that we vote on, in my opinion, those are the ones that have the most direct impact day in and day out on what we do.
Yeah, the city has a street and road tax, 1/10 of a mil. It's a renewal, and we need to keep our streets up. So again, the buses, if we find drivers, can go on the highways and byways, and it's so significant. We have some seniors in our class that if they are 18 on or before the 2nd of November, they can vote. And of course, we have college students. I'm sure you would urge them to get an absentee ballot and vote as well.
Yeah, I think any time with any issues, there's a reason all of us have the right to vote, and I think it's an important thing to, take that civic duty, the responsibility of it, and make sure that you do. Whatever it is, our job as a school district is to get it when we have issues on the ballot. We want to get our information out there so that people know. What people do with that information and the decisions they make, we respect. That's their decision. But exercising the right to be able to give that decision, I think, is an important one. And so we definitely would encourage anyone that's eligible to make sure that they register, make sure they vote, and if they have questions on our issue in particular, let us know. Our job is to get that information to them so that they can make their informed decision either way.
Yeah, the Board of Elections number, if there is a question about people maybe relocating, maybe coming in from another area in Ohio or even out of state, it's 330-722-9278. That's the Board of Elections if there's any questions, and we certainly want people to register. And again, I guess in those board elections, it's rotated because there's some continuity. If you have 3 leaving, you have 2 that's been around the block, I guess.
Yeah, I would think so. I'm not sure how they set that up to begin with, but I'm sure that was probably part of the thought process.
Andy, it seems like Doug Beeman and you work collectively so well together. And this to me is really a very, very unique issue in the fact that it's a combination. Quite frankly, I've never heard of this before, and it just points to you and he working together and trying to, again, do what's best for the district.
Yeah, Doug's a great guy. He's served this district for years really well as our treasurer. I can't say enough good things about him, and I think within any organization, and a school district's no different. Doug's hired by the board, I'm hired by the board, and then from there I recommend everybody else, I guess, to the board, is the way the structure is set up. And I think it's really important for a superintendent and a treasurer to be able to work collaboratively together. And Doug's part of our administrative team. He attends all of our meetings. He's very interested in understanding all of the dynamics that are involved in how the district operates and why we're making decisions and why we may need to be talking about adding a teacher here or adding a teacher there. Doug, I think, works really hard to be part of those discussions, and as a result of that, I think he's able to see a bigger picture than maybe some other treasurers in different districts that take a different approach to that. And so I just very much value and appreciate him, and the same with our Board of Education. Our Board of Education, Doug and I in particular, work very closely with them, and they work tirelessly on behalf of the kids in this community. I can't say enough about the work that they do, and so collectively together as a team, under the direction of the board, and then with all of our other 600 employees plus here, we work hard each day to do our best to move things forward in a positive way for our kids.
Well, Dr. Hill, we appreciate you and all your efforts, and we certainly hope that all your toil and effort in this will be very positive, and that voters will go ahead and get to the polls. They're open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. on the 2nd, unless they want to vote in person in Medina or absentee ballot.
Yep, that's great. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me on today.
Right. And Drew Bixler, we thank him for our videographer. He is certainly going to give us maybe a couple other shots. He has a drone that he's going to get fired up, and we're looking forward to that as well. Drew, thank you very much, and thanks for viewing. And speaking of Doug Beeman, we have him on our next show again with Mike Kovac. Have a good day.